Cole had been living on Galactic Council Station, Meridian 7, for 3 months now. The station floated in neutral space where dozens of alien species came together for trade and diplomacy. Danny worked as a human liaison officer, which mostly meant attending boring meetings and explaining Earth customs to confused aliens. He was a former wildlife photographer from Montana, and sometimes he missed the quiet forests and open skis of his. This job paid well and let him see things no human had ever seen before. It felt different, though. Ambassador Alov had called an emergency meeting for all newcomer species. There were tall creatures with shimmering green shells and large compound eyes. They were known throughout the galaxy for being extremely cautious about everything. If they called an emergency meeting, something serious was happening. Walked into the conference room and found it already crowded. There were at least 30 different alien species present, all of them looking nervous. His spy counselor of the standing in the corner was a reptilian creature with dark blue scales and sharp teeth. They considered themselves apex predators and often looked down on what they called prey species. Danny had shared drinks with a few times and found him arrogant but entertaining. Mr. Al stood at the front of the room near a large display screen. His compound eyes swept across the gathered diplomats, and his antennae twitched with anxiety. "You all for coming on such short notice," Al said. His voice was clicking and mechanical, translated through a device on his chest. "We have received disturbing intelligence that affects all species in this sector. What I am about to show you is classified footage from a quarantine world. Please prepare yourselves." Dimmed and the screen came to life. Danny leaned forward with curiosity as the footage began playing. It showed a dense jungle on some alien world, thick with purple vegetation and strange twisted trees. A squad of soldiers moved through the undergrowth in careful formation. They carried plasma rifles and wore heavy armor. Something burst from the shadows. Watched as a massive creep tore through the squad like they were made of paper. It stood nearly 3 meters tall on powerful legs. Its body was covered in thick armored scales that seemed to absorb the plasma fire. Long arms ending in curved claws slashed through armor like it was nothing. Its head was broad and flat with a mouth full of jagged teeth. The creature moved with terrifying speed and brutal efficiency. In less than 30 seconds, the entire squad was dead. Janet and the lights came back on. Danny looked around the room. Several aliens were physically ill, their bodies trembling or releasing stress chemicals that filled the air with strange smells. A small furry species near the door had collapsed entirely. Even Counselor had gone very still, his scales somehow paler than before. "The creature is called a," Ambassador Al said. His voice was shaking. "They inhabit a world we quarantined 200 years ago after losing 3 colonization attempts. Recently, our sensors have detected activity near the quarantine boundary. We believe they may be expanding their territory." A wave of terrified murmuring swept through the room. Danny scratched his chin thoughtfully. It was certainly impressive, but something about its movement pattern seemed familiar to him. The way it had ambushed the soldiers reminded him of big cats back on Earth. The armored body and powerful jaws made him think of crocodiles. "The Council is considering military options," Al continued. "But as you can see, conventional weapons have limited effect. We wanted all newcomer species to be aware of this threat so you can make preparation." So finally spoke up. His voice was rougher than usual. "How many of these creatures exist on the quarantine world?" "Estimates suggest a population between 50,000 and 100,000 individuals," Al replied. Gasps and cries of dismay filled the room. Danny just nodded slowly, still thinking. Danny's calm expression. The reptilian diplomat pushed through the crowd toward him with narrowed eyes. And said, "Why do you show no fear? Did you not see the same footage as the rest of us?" And he shrugged. "I saw it. Pretty impressive predator. Ambush hunter from the look of it. Probably territorial based on how it defended that area." The room fell silent. Everyone was staring at Danny now. "Because if you have seen that thing before," said Lowly. "Not exactly like that," Danny admitted, "but similar enough. The body structure reminds me of a grizzly bear mixed with a crocodile. The hunting style is like a big cat. We have creatures back on Earth that would give that thing a good fight." It dropped open, revealing rows of sharp teeth. "You are lying. No civilized species could develop on a world with such predators." "I'm not lying," Dan said calmly. "Earth has been full of dangerous predators for millions of years. We grew up alongside them." Mr. Al moved closer, his antennae rid with disbelief. "Human Danny, are you saying your contains creatures comparable to them?" Thought about it for a moment. "Comparable. I would say some of our predators are probably more dangerous in certain ways. These bigger and has that armor, sure. But our great white sharks have been perfecting their hunting for 400 million years. Our crocodiles have jaws that can crush bone like candy. Our big cats can run faster than most vehicles." The room was completely silent now. Several aliens looked like they might faint. "Humans survived among these creatures?" Al asked in a whisper. "Survived?" Danny smiled. "We thrived, we hunted them, we studied them. Some of them we even keep as pets now." It a joking sound, pets. Small versions anyway. Dogs are descended from wolves. Cats are still basically tiny murder machines, but we let them sleep in our beds. Look back at the frozen image of on the screen. It was a fearsome creature, no doubt about it. But he had spent years photographing grizzly bears in Alaska and lions in Africa. He had been charged by elephants and stalked by leopards. Fear was something he had learned to manage a long time ago. "The situation," Dan said casually. "You said the council is looking for a solution." "Yes," Al replied, still staring at Dan like he had grown a second head. "But we have found none that do not involve massive military casualties." He nodded thoughtfully. He remembered his grandfather's stories about the old days, when humans had driven many predator species to near extinction through fear and misunderstanding. Later generations had learned better. They had learned that predators could be managed, studied, even protected. "Want me to bring one?" Dan asked. The alien in the room turned to look at him, with expressions of horror and confusion. "Bring one what?" managed to ask. "Predator from Earth. I know some people who work with dangerous animals. Maybe if your council could see how we handle our own monsters, they might get some ideas for dealing with them." Silence stretched on for a long moment. Then Ambassador Al slowly nodded his head. "Danny," he said quietly, "I think we need to have a much longer conversation about your species." The conference room was smaller and quieter than the main chamber. Danny sat at a curved table across from Ambassador Al and Counselor. Both aliens were watching him with a mixture of fascination and disbelief. A holographic display terminal hummed softly between them, ready to access any database in the known galaxy. "Must be honest with you, human Danny," Al said. His compound eyes reflected the soft lights of the room. "Many in that chamber believe you were exaggerating. They especially find your claims difficult to accept." If uncomfortably, his blue scales rippled with what Dan recognized as embarrassment. "My people have always considered ourselves the premier predator species in the galaxy. We evolved from hunters. We take pride in the heritage." "Wrong with that," Dan said easily, But I was not exaggerating. If anything, I was keeping things simple. Earth has a long and bloody history with predators. Show us, challenge. Prove that your soft little species could possibly survive alongside creatures like that. He smiled and reached for the display terminal. He had been waiting for the moment. Computer, access Earth Biological Archives, Nature Documentary Collection. Terminal chimed in acknowledgement. Danny thought for a moment about where to start. There were so many options. He decided to begin with something familiar. This is an African lion, Danny said as the footage began playing. The screen showed a massive male lion with a golden mane starting through tall grass. Males can weigh over 200 kilograms. They hunt in groups called prides and can take down prey much larger than themselves. Foot shifted to show a pride of lions attacking a water buffalo. The violent was swift and efficient. Al's antennae pressed flat against his head. Watch this, Dan continued. The screen changed to show a river in Australia. This is a crocodile. They can grow over 6 meters long and have the strongest bite force of any living animal on Earth. Crocodile exploded from the water and dragged a large male beneath the surface. Leaned back in his chair, his eyes wide. The creature is remarkably similar to the, Al observed quietly. It's the two, Dan agreed. Same ambush style, same armor body. Our crocodiles have been around for over 200 million years. They survived the extinction event that killed the dinosaurs. Dinosaurs asked. Pulled up more footage. Giant reptiles that ruled Earth for over 106 million years. Some of them were the largest land predators ever to exist on our planet. Screen showed reconstructions of tyrannosaurs and velociraptors. Both aliens watched in stunned silence. They're extinct now, Dan explained. But they shaped how our ancestors evolved. Early males had to be fast, clever, and adaptable to survive in a world full of these things. Our ancestors lived alongside some monsters, Al asked. Or at least ones, yes. And even after the dinosaurs died out, there were plenty of other predators to worry about. Switch to footage of great white sharks. The mammoth fish cut through the water with deadly grace, rows of serrated teeth visible in its gaping mouth. Sharks have been hunting in our oceans for over 400 million years, Deng said. They are older than trees. They survived 5 mass extinction events, and humans swim in the same water with them. Willingly demanded. People even study them up close. We call them marine biologists. The door to the conference room slid open, and a human woman walked in. She wore a military uniform with lieutenant insignia on her collar. Her black hair was pulled back in a practical bun, and her eyes swept the room with quick efficiency. Mora, she introduced herself with a short nod. I heard there was an interesting conversation happening about Earth wildlife. Unless Danny said, I was just getting to the good stuff. I took a seat beside Danny and glanced at the screen showing shark footage. Great whites, nice choice. Did you show them tigers yet? I was saving the best for last. Grinned. My grandfather grew up in a village in India. Tigers would sometimes come down from the hills. He saw one kill a cow once, just grabbed it by the throat and dragged it into the jungle. He was 7 years old. Grandfather witnessed a predator attack as a child, Al asked, horrified. So if humans have stories like that, Morris said with a shrug. My family learned to live with the tigers. They respected them, kept their distance, but never ran away screaming. Running triggers the chase instinct. Nod and pulled up footage of Bengal tigers. The gray striped cats moved through dense jungle with fluid power. One clip showed a tiger leaping onto the back of a wild boar, bringing it down in seconds. Tigers can weigh over 300 kilograms, Dang said. They are solitary hunters, ambush predators, and they have been known to actively hunt humans in some regions. Humans? Repeated. His voice had lost much of its earlier arrogance. There was a tigress in India about 100 years ago called the tiger, Morris said. She killed over 400 people before a hunter finally stopped her. Othelian stared at her in absolute silence. You still have these creatures on your world? Al finally asked. Protect them now, Dang said. Tigers are endangered. We have conservation programs to help their populations recover. You protect the creatures that hunt your people. Leaned forward, his expression serious. Ambassador, there is something important about humans that you need to understand. We do not just fear our predators. We respect them. We study them. We have learned that they play an important role in keeping ecosystems healthy. So yes, we protect them, even the ones that can kill us. Shaking his head slowly, his scales had gone from dark blue to a pale gray color. I thought they were fierce. I thought we were the hunters of the galaxy, but we never faced anything like this. Our had no creatures that could threaten us once we developed tools. That's why humans are different, Dang said gently. We never had that luxury. Every step of our evolution there was something bigger and stronger trying to eat us. So we get smarter, we get tougher, we learn to work together and fight back. Al asked, how did primitive humans fight creatures like these? Smiled and pulled up one more piece of footage. It showed ancient cave paintings, crude images of humans with spears surrounding a massive woolly mammoth. Sticks and stones, Dang said. With teamwork and courage. We hunted animals 10 times our size but working together and never giving up. Persistence hunting, we call it. We would chase prey for hours, sometimes days, until it collapsed from exhaustion. No other predator on Earth could match human endurance. The room was silent for a long moment. Alan exchanged glances, something unspoken passing between them. Danny, Al said finally, Hugh Mora, I believe I need to make a formal request to the Galactic Council. What kind of request? Mora asked. Request for human assistance with the situation. It is clear now that your species has knowledge and experience that no other civilization possesses. Perhaps what we need is not a bigger army, but a different approach entirely. Nod slowly. He had been eyeing for exactly the response. Ambassador, I would be happy to help, and I think I know exactly where to start. The communication chamber of Meridian set was designed to handle calls across the entire galaxy. Massive screens lined the curved walls and holographic projectors create life-sized images of anyone speaking from light years away. Danny stood beside Lieutenant Mora as they waited for the connection to Earth Defense Command to stabilize. A flicker of light, and then Admiral appeared before them in full holographic detail. She was a stern one in her 60s with silver hair cut short and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Danny had never met her in person, but her reputation was well known. She had commanded the first human fleet to make contact with alien civilizations and had negotiated peace treaties that most diplomats thought impossible. Mr. Cole, the Admiral's voice was crisp and businesslike. I have reviewed the briefing materials you sent. This situation is certainly interesting. Interesting is one word for it, Admiral, Moore replied. The Galactic Council has been trying to contain them for 2 centuries with no success. They have lost thousands of soldiers. We'll nod slowly. Her holographic image turned to study the frozen frame of footage that Danny had left on a secondary screen. Impressive creature. Ambush predator, clearly. Armored hide suggests an evolutionary arms race with something equally dangerous on there. pack behavior from the way they coordinated in the later footage. Felt a surge of respect. The Admiral had spotted the same details he had noticed. Permission to speak freely, Admiral, Danny asked. Granted. Council has been treating this like a military problem. Send in soldiers, try to kill the loose soldiers, repeat. But I do not think that approach will ever work. They are not an invading army. They are apex predators doing what apex predators do. Admiral's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. You are suggesting a wildlife management approach. Exactly. On Earth, we learned a long time ago that you cannot just exterminate dangerous animals without causing bigger problems. Ecosystems collapse, other species die out. Everything gets worse. We had to learn a different way. Step forward. Admiral, we believe that if Earth could send a specialized team with experience in dangerous wildlife, we might be able to find a solution that does not involve endless combat. Admiral was quiet for a moment. Behind her, Dane could see the busy operations center of Earth Defense Command. Officers moved between stations and screens, displayed information from across human space. The Council has officially requested human assistance, Admiral asked. Ambassador Alva has submitted the formal request, more confirmed. It is being reviewed by the High Arbiter now. Summoned by her words, the door to the communicating chamber slid open. High Arbiter drifted into the room like a cloud of golden light. It was an ancient gaseous species, one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. The High Arbiter had no solid body, just a shimmering mass of particles that somehow managed to convey authority and wisdom. Rule of Earth, his voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. I am High Arbiter. I understand your people believe they can help with our problem. Admiral's holographic form turned to face the glowing entity. High Arbiter. Yes, we believe human experience with dangerous predators may offer a new perspective. Skepticism said. Motes of light flickered through the gaseous body like stars. They have killed thousands of our finest warriors. They resist all weapons we deploy against them. What can a single team accomplish that armies could not? He spoke up. High Arbiter, may I show you something? Golden cloud shifted, with Dane took his permission. He walked to the main display and pulled up footage from Earth. It showed a team of wildlife rangers in Africa approaching a pride of lions. The rangers moved carefully, respectfully, keeping their distance while still getting close enough to fire tranquilizer darts. Humans are not soldiers, Dane explained. They are conservationists. Their job is to track, study, and protect lions, one of the most dangerous predators on our planet. They do not try to kill the lions. They try to understand them. Foot shifted to show the same team fitting a radio collar to a sedated lion. The great beast lay peaceful while humans measured its body, checked its health, and documented everything. Standing leads to management, Dan continued. Once we know how predator thinks, what it needs, where it goes, we can find ways to live alongside it. Sometimes that means keeping them away from populated areas. Sometimes it means protecting their hunting grounds so they do not need to expand. Every situation is different, but the approach is the same. Learn first, then act. Arbiter's body pulsed with color, shifting from gold to deep orange. Danny had no idea what that meant, but he hoped it was a positive sign. Concept is foreign to us, admitted. When the first attacked our colonies, we responded with force. When force failed, we used more force. The idea of studying them, of trying to understand their behavior, never occurred to us. Civilizations respond to predators with fear, Admiral said. Humans learned early that fear alone leads to extinction. We had to adapt. Pulled up another image on the display. It showed a map of Earth with highlighted regions. These are protected wildlife zones on our planet. National parks, nature reserves, conservation areas. Millions of square kilometers where dangerous animals live under human supervision. We monitor them, manage their populations, and intervene only when necessary. Voluntarily preserve dangerous creatures, asked. The gaseous body had shifted to a confused blue color. Preserve all creatures, Dang said, because we learned that every species plays a role in the greater ecosystem. Remove the predators and the prey species over highlight. Then they eat all the vegetation. Then the land turns to desert. Everything is connected. We'll clear her throat. High Arbiter, I am prepared to authorize a specialized team for the mission. We have personnel with experience handling Earth's most dangerous wildlife. Dan Cole here spent 10 years fogating predators in the wild. He knows how to read animal behavior better than most. Volunteer to lead the contact team, Dan said. I have worked with bears, lions, crocodiles, and sharks. They are new, but predators are predators. The principles are the same. Provide military support, Morad. Small team, defensive weapons only. We are not going there to fight. We are going to observe and learn. Arbiter flowed in silence for a long moment. The other colonel species watched through remote viewing screens, their alien faces displaying various expressions of doubt and fear. This is unprecedented, finally said. No species has ever volunteered to approach without intent to kill. Your humans are either very brave or very foolish. He smiled. My grandmother used to say the same thing about wildlife photographers. Well, the golden cloud pulsed with decision. The council will authorize the mission. You may approach the quarantine world and attempt your wildlife management approach. But understand this, Hugh and Danny. If you fail, if they kill your team, we will have no choice but to resume military operations. Understood, High Arbiter. Admiral nodded sharply. I will begin assembling the team immediately. Cole, you will have everything you need. Earth is counting on you to show the galaxy what humans can do. Holographic connection ended and the chamber fell quiet. High Arbiter drifted toward the door, then paused. Danny, the ancient being said softly, I have lived for thousands of years. I have seen countless species rise and fall, but I have never met anyone quite like your people. I hope your strained courage is not misplaced. Watch the glowing entity leave, then turn to Mar with a grin. Pack, he said, and may review some old field notes. I have a feeling they are going to be very interesting to me. Shuttle descended through thick purple clouds, and Dan got his first real look at the dense jungle stretched to every horizon, broken only by winding rivers and jagged mountain peaks. The vegetation was unlike anything on Earth, towering trees with sprawled trunks and broad leaves that shifted color in the wind. Beautiful and dangerous, just like the creatures that lived here. And he's zoned in 2 minutes, the pilot announced over the intercom. Checked his equipment one more time. No weapons, just observation gear, cameras, recording devices, binoculars, and a pack of preserved meat samples that they had prepared. Beside him, Lieutenant Moore wore a light defense suit and carried a compact plasma pistol. She was there for protection, but everyone understood that if things went bad, one pistol would not save them. Sat across from Danny, checking his long-range rifle, was a former park ranger from Yellowstone who had spent 15 years tracking grizzly bears and mountain lions. He was calm and steady, exactly the kind of person you want to want in your back in predator territory. Was reviewing data on a tablet, her dark eyes scanning through everything the council knew about biology and behavior. She was the team's responsible for figuring out how these creatures thought. Last member of their group was unexpected. Counselor had insisted on joining the mission as an official observer. The diplomat sat rigid in his seat, his blue scales pale with barely concealed fear. Dan respected him for coming to fight that fear. It took courage to face the things that terrified you. The shuttle touched down in a small clearing and the rear hatch opened. Humid air flooded the cabin, thick with alien scents that made Danny's nose twitch. He stepped out onto soft purple moss and immediately began scanning the tree line. The perimeter, Moore ordered quietly. Her team moved with practiced efficiency, establishing sight lines and cover positions without making too much noise. He stood still and listened. The jungle was full of sounds, clicks and chirps and distant calls from creatures he could not identify, but beneath all that noise he sensed something else, present, eyes watching from the shadow. "They know we're here," Dan said softly. "It's a nervous sound, how can you tell?" "Smaller animals have gone quiet in that direction." Dan pointed toward a dense thicket of sprawled trees. "Something big is keeping them silent." Doctor activated her scanner and studied the readings. Multiple heat signatures approximately 50 meters out, large bodies, bipedal configuration. It is them. He raised his rifle scope to his eye and peered into the jungle. "I count at least 4. They are watching us but not approaching." Tutorial assessment, Dan said. He had seen that behavior countless times with Earth predators. "They are trying to figure out what we are, whether we are prey, competitors, or something else entirely." "What do we do?" asked. His voice was tight with tension. Thought about it. In situations like that with Earth predators, the worst thing you could do was show fear. Running triggered chase instincts. Panic invite attack. The best approach was to demonstrate that you were not prey, not a threat, just something different that deserved cautious respect. "Stay calm," Dan said. "Keep your movements slow and deliberate. No sudden action." Reached into his pack and pulled out one of the preserved meat samples. Then, against every instinct screaming in the back of his mind, he stepped away from the group toward the tree line. "And what are you doing?" Moore hissed. "Making an introduction." Walked slowly, keeping his hands visible at his sides. The jungle seemed to hold its breath around him. 20 meters from the group, 30 meters. He could feel the weight of predator eyes on him now, heavy and calculating. Shape emerged from the shadows. Even more impressive in person than it had been in the footage. It stood nearly 3 meters tall, towering over Danny's average human height. Armored scales covered its body in overlapping plates that gleamed with an oily sheen. Its arms were long and thick, ending in curved claws that could gut a man with one swipe. The flat head swung toward Danny, and he found himself looking into eyes that burned with fierce intent. It was no mindless beast. There was a thing creature, as aware of Danny as Danny was of it. "Oh there," Dan said quietly. He kept his voice low and calm, the same tone he used with nervous bears. "I am not here to hurt you, just want to talk." Made a deep rumbling sound in its chest, not quite a growl, more like a question. Slowly raised the meat sample and tossed it gently toward the creature. It landed on the moss a few meters from the great predator looked at the offering, then back at Danny. Those intelligent eyes were weighing him, judging him. And Danny he heard whimpering softly. Moore's hand was on her pistol. Had his rifle trained on the but his finger was off the trigger. Good discipline. A second emerged from the jungle to the left, then a third from the right. They were being surrounded. "But move," Dan said loud enough for his team to hear. "Just stay still." Lee took a step forward and sniffed the meat offering. Its nostrils flared, processing the unfamiliar scent. Then it lowered its head and ate the sample in one quick bite. Felt a small spark of hope. Accepting food was a positive sign. It meant they saw him as something other than immediate prey. "Where that came from," Dan said. He slowly reached into his pack and produced another sample, placing it on the ground at his feet. Lee studied him for a long moment. Dan met its gaze without flinching. Eye contact was tricky with predators. Too much could be seen as a challenge. Too little could be seen as weakness. But Danny had years of experience reading animals, and something told him that the respected directness. The massive creature took another step forward, then another. It was close enough now that Danny could smell its breath, hot and metallic. Close enough that one swing of those claws would end his life. He did not run, did not flinch, did not look away. Made another rumbling sound different from before, almost like approval. It bent down and took the second meat sample, then straightened and looked at Danny one more time. For just a moment, something passed between them. Not friendship, not exactly, but recognition, understanding. He turned its head and made a sharp barking sound. The other in the clearing immediately began retreating into the jungle. Within seconds, they had vanished into the shadows, leaving Danny standing alone in the purple moss. Let out a long, slow breath. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. Or was at his side in an instant. What the hell was that? Communication, Dan said. His voice was shaking slightly despite his best efforts. Pack hierarchy. The big one is the alpha. It decided we are not a threat, so the other backed off. There was frantically recording notes on her tablet. Remarkable. They show clear social structure and nonverbal communication. The alpha made a decision, and the others followed immediately. This suggests a level of intelligence we did not anticipate. Not moved from his spot. His scales had gone completely gray, and his eyes were huge. "How did you remain so calm? That creature could have killed you in an instant." He managed a weak smile. "I was not calm. I was terrified. But fear and panic are different things, counselor. Fear gets you alert. Panic gets you killed. I learned that a long time ago watching grizzlies fish for sand in Alaska." Ordered his rifle and walked over to examine the spot where they had stood. Clean prints. No sign of aggression in the body language. "I think you actually impressed it, Danny." "Let us hope so." Danny looked toward the jungle where they had disappeared. "Because I think we just made first contact. Now we need to figure out how to build on it." Looked up from her tablet with excited eyes. "If they communicate through vocalizations and body language, we might be able to establish a basic understanding. This is incredible. No one has ever gotten this close to it without combat." Nodded slowly. Somewhere in the jungle, the alpha was probably watching them right now, thinking about the strange, soft creatures who had come to its territory and offered food instead of weapons. "Set up a base camp," Danny ordered. "We have a lot of work to do." Weeks passed on the 3 weeks of careful observation, cautious approaches, and slow progress. Danny had established a routine with the alpha, whom he had started calling after a particularly grim bear he had photographed years ago in Montana. Every morning, Danny would walk to the same clearing with meat offerings. Every morning would appear from the jungle to accept them. Red made remarkable discoveries during their time on the planet. They were far more intelligent than anyone had said. They lived in complex social groups with clear hierarchies and responsibilities. They communicated through a combination of vocalizations, body postures, and scent marks. They had territories, mating rituals, and even something that looked like play behavior among the younger members of the pack. "I think I understand why they expanded toward jungle space," announced one evening as the team gathered around their camp. "Look at these ecological scans." Projected a map of the region onto a portal screen. Large sections were marked in red. 100 years ago, when the Council first tried to colonize the world, they used heavy orbital bombardment to clear landing zones. The damage cascaded through the ecosystem. Prey species died out. Vegetation patterns shifted. They lost significant hunting grounds. We're starving, Dan realized. They expanded because they had to find new food sources. Exactly. The Council's military response only made things worse. Every attack killed, but it also damaged more of the environment. It became a cycle. The more they fought, the more desperate they became, and the more they needed to expand. Shook her head slowly. 2 centuries of war, and it was all based on a misunderstanding. They were not invading. They were just trying to survive. Been unusually quiet during his time on the planet. The counselor had watched Danny interact with the day after day, and something had changed in him. The arrogance was gone, replaced by thoughtful observation. Said softly, we would have responded exactly as the council did. Attack the threat. Destroy it before it destroys you. We never considered that there might be another way. Species think that way, Dan replied. Humans did too for a long time. We nearly wiped out wolves, bears, sharks, and dozens of other predators because we saw them only as threats. It took us generations to learn that coexistence was possible, that it was actually better for everyone, including us. Next morning, Danny made his final probe too. The Great emerged from the tree line as usual, but this time Danny had something different in his pack. A small tracking device, no bigger than his thumb. The big guy, Dan said quietly, I need to ask a favor. Well, in response, over the weeks they had developed something almost like a relationship. Not friendship exactly, but mutual respect. Had stopped displaying threat posture. He would sometimes sit near Dan while eating, close enough that Dan could see the individual scales on his armored hide. This thing is going to help your people, Dan continued, holding up the tracker. We can know where you go, what you need. We can make sure you have enough food so you never need to expand again. Had no idea if understood any of his words, but the watch with those intelligent eyes as Danny slowly approached. When Danny reached out to tap the tracker to one of the thick scales on his shoulder, the great predator did not move, did not strike, just watched. Tracker clicked in place. Danny stepped back and let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. Good boy, he whispered. A sound that might have been acknowledgement. Then he turned and disappeared into the jungle, the tracking device already sending data back to the team's equipment. A week later, Danny stood before the full Galactic Council on Meridian 7. The great chamber was packed with representatives from dozens of species, all watching him with expressions ranging from curiosity to disbelief. Not monsters, Dan said, his voice carried clearly through the space. They are animals, dangerous animals, yes, apex predators at the top of their food chain, but they are not evil. They do not attack out of malice. They follow instincts that have evolved over millions of years. Activated the display behind him, showing footage from their weeks on the planet, hunting, playing, caring for their young, accepting food from Dan's hand. Those 200 years of military action caused ecological damage that disrupted the food supply. They expanded toward our space because they were starving. Every attack we launched made things worse by destroying more of their habitat. Badder Al leaned forward. You are saying we caused the crisis ourselves? Intentionally, yes, but the good news is that we can fix it. Stepped up beside Danny and took over the presentation. Our proposal is based on proven Earth conservation methods. First, we establish protected territories where they can hunt without interference. Second, we restore the damaged ecosystems to support adequate prey population. Third, we set up monitoring systems to track movements and intervene only when necessary. Want us to protect these creatures, a delegate from a species Danny did not recognize demanded, after all the deaths they have caused. I want you to manage them, Danny replied. There's a difference. Protection means leaving them alone completely. Management means understanding them well enough to prevent problems before they happen. On Earth, we have entire government agencies dedicated to this kind of work. Arbiter's golden form drifted to the center of the chamber. Human Danny, you have shown us something remarkable. Your species approach predators not with fear or aggression, but with patience and understanding. This is truly alien to most civilizations. It took us a long time to learn, Danny admitted. We made many mistakes along the way. We drove species to extinction out of fear and ignorance. But eventually we realized that every creature has a place in the grand design of life, even the dangerous ones, especially the dangerous ones. So rose from his seat among the delegation. His scales had returned to their healthy dark blue color. To the world expecting to see humans fail, said. His voice was staid but humble. I thought your confidence was foolish arrogance. Instead, I witnessed something that has changed how I think about strength and courage. Human Danny stood before a creature that could have killed him with one blow, and he offered it food instead of weapons. That is a kind of bravery my people never considered. Chamber was silent as continued. I support the human proposal that will contribute resources to the conservation effort. By one, other delegations voiced their support. The momentum built until even the most skeptical species agreed to try the human approach. High Arbiter formally approved the Wildlife Management Plan and appointed Danny as director of the newly created Galactic Wildlife Advisory Division. The session ended, Danny found himself alone in a quiet observation lounge overlooking the stars. Moore joined him a few minutes later. Congratulations, Director Cole, she said with a smile. Not bad for a wildlife photographer from Montana. Laughed softly. Never thought I would end up here, but I guess the skills translate. You did down there with, it was incredible. You really think this approach will work long term? I think it will work better than endless war. Dan looked out at the countless stars scattered across the darkness. There are probably other species out there like the creatures that everyone fears, that everyone wants to destroy. Maybe we can help with them too. Our rangers for the galaxy. Like that? Dan smiled. Our grandmother always said the universe has a way of putting you exactly where you need to be. Maybe this is where humanity needs to be right now, teaching the galaxy that not every problem requires a weapon. Pulled up a holographic image of on his personal device. The tracking disc showed the Alpha moving through restored hunting grounds, healthy in content. Besides, Danny added quietly, I made a friend down there. It would be nice to visit him again someday. Nodded, and they stood together in comfortable silence, two humans looking out at a galaxy full of wonders and terrors, a galaxy that was just beginning to learn what humanity had always known. The bravest thing you can do is not fight at all. Sometimes courage means reaching out your hand to something that could destroy you and saying hello.